They were 12 years old, with bright yellow ribbons tied in their hair. They smiled happily as Mickey Mouse put his arms around them, creating a moment that would be frozen in time forever. But when their mother came back just a few minutes later, they were nowhere to be found. They had vanished right in the middle of Disneyland. There was no screaming, no fighting, no goodbye. The photograph was the only proof left that they had ever been there. Almost 30 years later, when workers found something buried deep under the park, under the same ground where millions of people walk every year, the truth started to come out. And it wasn't magical at all. The story behind the family. The Martinez family had just started a new life in California not long before. Rebecca Martinez was a single mother who had come from Manchester. She moved to the United States in 1982 after a terrible fire at her workplace killed her husband. She had 2 daughters who were identical twins, Emma and Sophia. Rebecca worked the night shift at a clothing factory, saving every penny she could for her girls. By 1985, Rebecca had one dream: to give the twins a birthday they would never forget. Disneyland, California, the most magical place in all of America. They got to the park on July 15th, 1985. It was hot and very crowded, but it was perfect. The twins wore exactly the same clothes: pink t-shirts covered in sparkles, light blue denim overalls, clean white sneakers, and those matching yellow ribbons that Rebecca had carefully tied in their hair that morning. They were all smiles, holding each other's hands, skipping through the park like every ride was something from a dream. Everyone who saw them said it was one of the happiest days of their lives, until 3:07 in the afternoon. The last photograph, they were in Tomorrowland when they spotted him, Mickey Mouse, one of the park workers dressed up in the full costume. He was lively and fun, waving at everyone, giving hugs to kids, shaking hands with parents. Emma let out a loud squeal of excitement. Sophia was quieter, but just as thrilled, and she pulled on her mother's sleeve. "Can we take a picture?" she whispered softly. Rebecca smiled and agreed. She took 3 photos, and the last one would become famous for all the wrong reasons: the twins standing on both sides of Mickey, both of them beaming with joy. What happened next is still something people argue about bitterly. Rebecca needed to use the restroom, which was less than 100 feet away. According to what she remembered, the Mickey character nodded and used gestures to show he would stay with the girls. Other visitors later confirmed they saw him playing with the twins, even laughing and walking slowly in a small circle like he was entertaining them. When Rebecca came back, the area was completely empty. No twins, no Mickey, nothing but empty space and echoes. The panic starts. At first, Rebecca couldn't believe it. Maybe they had run off to see another character or gone into a shop. Then disbelief turned into confusion, and confusion turned into fear. Rebecca searched frantically for 10 whole minutes before she told a staff member what was happening. By 3:30 in the afternoon, Disney security was involved. Rides in the area around them were stopped. Announcements were made over the loudspeakers. Staff members spread out everywhere to look. Witnesses came forward, but they only had small pieces of information. "I saw the girls following Mickey toward the arcade," one person said. "They were near the Space Mountain Tunnel," said another. "There was a second Mickey near the fountain," claimed a third. The security cameras in 1985 were very limited. There was no live video feed, no park-wide system to recognize faces, and only grainy, slow footage from cameras that didn't move. No video ever showed the twins leaving the park. No one matching Mickey's full costume was seen walking out. And then came the worst detail of all. The performer, who was supposed to be wearing that Mickey suit during the 2:33 afternoon shift, never came back to work. They simply vanished too. The investigation. The Anaheim police started one of the biggest searches in the city's history. Disney executives were terrified of the bad publicity this would bring, so they cooperated fully by giving police staff lists, costume checkout records, and security badge logs. But there was one huge problem. All the cast members who were supposed to be working that day were cleared of any wrongdoing. The Mickey that Rebecca saw didn't match any employee's costume schedule. His suit was different, slightly faded. His gloves were stitched at the fingertips in a way that wasn't regulation. His height didn't match anyone who worked there. Someone had pretended to be Mickey Mouse and walked into the park without anyone noticing. The FBI was called in to help. Dozens of other Mickey costume sightings were tracked down and investigated, but the one man, the one who posed with the Martinez twins in that photograph, was never found. It became a cold case, frozen in time. As weeks turned into months, the case grew cold. There were no bodies found, no ransom demands, no believable suspects, just a grieving mother and one grainy photograph. The media called them the Disneyland twins. The case got national attention and sparked debates about child safety, park surveillance, and loopholes that allowed people to fake costumes. But without any leads, everything came to a stop. Rebecca never left California. She refused to legally declare the girls dead. Every year on July 15th, she left 2 yellow ribbons outside the park entrance. Every year she waited, and for 28 years, nothing changed, until 2013. Part 2, The Head in the Drain. In February 2013, Disneyland was getting ready for its newest attraction, a futuristic update of Tomorrowland. The project required a lot of underground work, including removing old drainage systems that hadn't been touched since the early 1980s. Just after midnight on February 17th, 2 contract workers were clearing debris from a sealed concrete drain shaft beneath a utility hallway. The passage was narrow and poorly lit, and it hadn't been mapped on any modern blueprint. At exactly 12 a.m., one of the workers called in on his radio, his voice reportedly shaking. "We found something human," he said. What they found would reopen one of the darkest files in the Anaheim police archives. What the earth gave back, wedged inside a rusted metal grate hidden beneath decades of dirt and runoff, was a severed human head that had been mummified by the dry conditions and was encased in a faded rubber mask. The mask was unmistakable. Mickey Mouse. Not a replica, not a toy, but a full-size Disney character mask that was custom-made, professional grade, and fused to human remains. Forensic experts confirmed something impossible. The human tissue inside the Mickey head belonged to a man in his late 40s who had likely been dead since the mid-1980s. There was no jaw, no identification, only a small piece of bone near the eye socket. A forensic artist used computers to reconstruct the face, and what appeared looked strikingly similar to a former Disney cast member who had vanished in 1981. A man named David Collins. Who was David Collins? David Collins had worked as a part-time performer at Disneyland from 1979 to 1981. He was known for always being on time and for being very quiet, and he disappeared from his apartment without leaving any trace. At the time, police didn't suspect any foul play. They assumed he had moved away or joined some traveling entertainment show, but his file was never officially closed. Now, his severed head was found beneath Disneyland, still wearing the suit he used to perform in. But the timing didn't make sense. Collins vanished in 1981. The Martinez twins went missing in 1985, which raised a terrifying question. If Collins was dead, who was wearing the Mickey costume that led the twins away? Back to the beginning. Detective Sarah Mitchell was a newly promoted homicide detective who had studied the Martinez file when she was in college. She was brought in to lead the reopened case. She looked at the original 1985 park photos again, including the famous image of the twins hugging Mickey. She focused on one detail. The glove stitching looked odd, frayed, and not regulation. That same stitching style matched an old police photo of Collins in his costume from 1980. And there was something else. One guest photo taken by an unrelated family just minutes before the twins vanished showed Mickey standing still in the background, but his eyes weren't facing the camera. They were turned sideways watching the twins. Part 3. The Costume Room. 2 weeks after the discovery of David Collins's head beneath the drain shaft, Detective Sarah Mitchell got a tip that completely changed the entire investigation. An anonymous letter with a Santa Ana postmark arrived at the Anaheim Police Department. It was typed, unsigned, and sealed in a plain white envelope. The message said, "The others are still below, behind the old prop cellar, door 3C. Ask for the keys Disney never logged." It sounded like nonsense or someone playing a joke. But Disney's internal security files did mention a forgotten area called the prop cellar. It had been used for storage in the 1970s before being shut down during a fire code revision, and it had been locked for over 30 years. Door 3, C, on March 5, 2013, accompanied by park security and forensic experts, Detective Sarah Mitchell entered the underground hallway beneath Adventureland, an area that had been marked off limits since 1986 due to earthquake safety work. They found door 3C, painted black with rusted hinges and no record of its existence on current facility blueprints. When they forced it open, it revealed a chilling space. There were mannequins covered in dust, prop coffins from the haunted mansion, rotting wooden crates labeled Fantasyland 1975, and in the back, a row of garment bags hanging from a rusted pipe. Inside the bags, 5 full character suits, Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and one costume that never officially existed. It was a darkened Mickey Mouse variant with muted colors, longer gloves, and wider eyes. It wasn't designed for performance. It was built to disguise a person so they could hide in plain sight. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. Evidence left to decay. Forensic experts collected fibers, traced DNA, and samples from all 5 costumes. The strange Mickey suit contained something else: human hair, bone fragments, and a partial thigh bone belonging to a child estimated to be 10 to 13 years old. Testing confirmed it was a match to Sofia Martinez. After 28 years, her presence had been confirmed. Not in the park, not in a grave, but sealed inside the lining of a costume that was meant to entertain children. But there was no sign of Emma. Mitchell began to suspect what no one wanted to say out loud. There may not have been just one imposter. There may have been a group. Part 4, Room 0. It started with a confession. 3 weeks after the discovery of the hidden costume room, an anonymous email was sent to Detective Sarah Mitchell's personal work address. No name, no way to trace the IP address. Just one line. Room 0 was real. I was there in 1985. The twins were not the first. Attached was a grainy image that looked like a concrete hallway, dimly lit with cartoon stickers peeling from the walls. At the end was a heavy metal door. You could faintly see stenciling above it that read RZ01. Disney had no record of any location labeled Room 0, but longtime maintenance staff remembered rumors of a pilot storage tunnel built beneath the original Fantasyland during the late 1970s. A dead-end construction project that was abandoned and sealed after budget cuts. If Room 0 existed, it wasn't meant for guests. It wasn't even meant for employees. The Descent. On April 11, 2013, under tight security, Mitchell and a forensic team followed an access path buried beneath a maintenance elevator near It's a Small World. The passage was narrow and lined with crumbling plaster. Every few feet, cartoon faces were painted over exposed wires, their smiles fading in the dampness. At the end stood the door from the photograph, RZ01. It was cold to the touch and locked with 3 deadbolts. When they forced it open, the smell hit them first: mold, dust, and rot. The space inside was roughly 30 feet wide, lit by old fluorescent tubes that were still wired into emergency backup power. In the center was a rusted metal table bolted to the floor, and on the wall, 8 names scrawled in faded marker, 6 crossed out, 2 not. The uncrossed names Sophia, Emma. What they found scattered across the room were decayed fabric scraps, children's shoes, and an old tape player. When they turned it on, it made a series of looping audio clips, snippets of Disney songs that were distorted and slowed beyond recognition. Some staff reported hearing a second voice layered beneath the music, whispering. Others claimed it called their names. In one corner they found a trapdoor that was sealed but not empty. Inside was a deteriorated wooden box padded with insulation foam. Wrapped in an old Space Mountain t-shirt was a child's thigh bone. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Emma Martinez. She had been beneath the park for 28 years, unmarked, unmourned, stored away. The one who knew. With media frenzy mounting, a former Disneyland security supervisor came forward under witness protection. He claimed that in the early 1980s, strange, costumed figures had been reported in the park after hours. Characters walking alone, refusing to speak, sometimes entering restricted areas without keys. When security footage was reviewed, those figures never appeared on camera, but witnesses swore they saw them. Some believed it was pranksters. Others feared something much worse. The supervisor confirmed that Room Zero had been hushed out of existence after a child vanished in 1981, and that costumes were quietly destroyed. Or so they thought. Someone had kept one and used it again. Part 5. The Face Behind the Mask. After weeks of silence, the breakthrough came unexpectedly. A 63-year-old man named Michael Harrison was arrested on an unrelated trespassing charge in Bakersfield. During booking, his fingerprints flagged an old sealed file. He was a former Disneyland maintenance subcontractor from 1980 to 1986. When questioned about where he was in July 1985, Harrison became erratic. He mentioned tunnels, asked for his costume, and whispered, Mickey was never supposed to bleed. Investigators got a warrant to search his rural home. What they found ended the case. The archive room. Hidden behind a false wall in Harrison's basement was a private museum of horror. There were Polaroid photos of children inside character dressing rooms, fragments of vintage Disney costumes, including dark Mickey gloves, sound recordings labeled training audio with voices warped and layered over carousel music, and most damning of all, a diary. Inside the diary were entries dated from 1981 to 1985. One dated July 16, 1985, read, The twins were perfect. They smiled. They trusted me. The tunnels are mine now. Room Zero keeps secrets. He called it his kingdom. He saw himself not as a man, but as a character the park had forgotten. The final door. One last search was ordered, this time beneath a long-sealed section of the original tunnels. Harrison had drawn maps. One passage stood out. The mirror room. It was real. Behind a rusted panel, they found a chamber lined with one-way mirrors, surveillance glass facing out into various ride lines. Abandoned decades ago, the room held rotting furniture, a broken intercom, and scraps of costume fur pinned to corkboard. This was where Harrison had watched, where he had picked the children he wanted to follow. Emma and Sophia hadn't been the first. They were just the ones no one could ignore. Aftermath, Harrison was ruled mentally unfit for trial and was institutionalized, remaining silent. Rebecca Martinez passed away in 2016, 2 years after finally burying her daughters. Room 0 was sealed permanently. The park denied any knowledge of its purpose. But employees still whisper about the tunnels and the time Mickey smiled just a little too wide. Do you think Harrison acted alone? Investigators still ask. Or was he protecting something larger? Something still beneath the park, some say. Did you enjoy this story? If you were Rebecca, would you have taken your 12-year-old twins to the bathroom with you, or left them alone with Mickey Mouse for just a few minutes? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Never leave your children alone with strangers. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.